Hi, my name is Mike Dillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for those who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of your life. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. Phillip Stutts is the Michael Jordan of political marketing. If you're running for office and if you need help coming up with a winning marketing strategy for your campaign, Phil is the guy you call. Over the last 20 years, his firm has managed billions of dollars in campaign ad spending, and he's helped over 1,000 politicians get elected, including 3 U.S. presidents. His marketing firm, Go Big Media, has won over 30 awards, and he's made over 200 major media appearances. So as you can imagine, given today's political climate, this is one of the most fascinating interviews we've ever had, as Phil takes us behind the curtain and into the world of politics from a marketer's perspective. But what was not expected was the fact that Phil has also been fighting a very personal battle with a rare, incurable disease called achalasia. So after his diagnosis in 2012, he put his head in the sand and basically just gave in to the fact that he was simply going to be a victim of this disease and that there was nothing he could do about it. Well, at least that was until he met my friend Peter Diamandis. If you've been a listener of the show for a while, you know that Peter was the person who inspired me to pursue my hydroponics startup Evergrow years ago, and he later became an advisor to the company. Well, Peter had a similar effect on Phil one day where he challenged an audience, which Phil was sitting in, to think about one thing that the world considers impossible and to find a way to prove them wrong within the next 5 years. Well, Phil took this message to heart and he decided that he would be the first person to cure this incurable disease. And as you're going to find out today, he might just very well pull it off. This is an incredible interview with an incredible man who refuses to accept anything less in life than victory. He embodies a belief that I have had for many, many years, which is it's not if one man or woman can make a difference. It's the fact that it is always one man or woman that does make the difference. So with that being said, please help me welcome Phillip Stutts. Phillip Stutts, welcome to Self-Made Man. I'm excited for today's interview. I have rarely had a chance to connect with a guest that I've had so much in common with that I haven't previously known before. So I'm super excited to have you on the show today.
Man, I'm so honored, Mike. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So we've got a bunch of people in common. some of the most amazing people on the planet, I would say, in the form of Peter Diamandis and Tony Robbins. How did you get connected with both of them?
Well, with Peter, I went to I actually started with another one, which is Keith Cunningham.
Yep.
Some people that Keith is a mentor of mine, and some of the people that business owners that I've worked with through Keith had recommended that I go to the Abundance 360 conference. And so I went in 2017. And actually, it's part of the story of what I've told, but it was one of the most life-changing moments of my entire life. I've gotten to know Peter since then. I went to China with him last summer. And he's been extraordinarily generous through my health issues and everything else, and so he's a really good guy.
I know he was a big inspiration for the fact that you have a really rare disease, and you decided or were inspired by Peter to find the cure for it. And not being a doctor or having any kind of medical background is a pretty ballsy move. But you've had a lot of success. So what happened? Take us back to the moment where you realized something wasn't right.
Yeah, I remember eating cereal in my kitchen in Washington, D.C., and I couldn't get the cereal down my throat. I was having to drink the milk. And I was like, what is this? And then I was trying to eat an apple later that day, and it was the same thing with the skin of the apple. And I was like, something's going on here. And it took 18 months. I was finally diagnosed with a rare esophageal disease called achalasia. And it affects 1 out of 100,000 people. Typically, those people are in their 70s and 80s, and I was in my mid-30s at the time. And so I literally was diagnosed with this disease, and for 5 years, I took medications that doctors said would eventually give me dementia, but in the short term, they helped my situation.
Oh, awesome.
My nerves and muscles in my esophagus do not work. I've had 3 major surgeries on my esophagus, 15 minor procedures. The last surgery at the Mayo Clinic, they literally pulled my esophagus straight. They cut 25% of my stomach out. They wrapped it around my esophagus. They basically stapled it all together. And then one day that wrap will come undone. And we don't know if I can do it again. And they said that I'll have a feeding tube after that. And that should happen in the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, what's the primary symptom of the disease?
There's no known cause in my research. I believe it's sort of autoimmune based. That something in my gut. I had a very unhealthy gut. If I'm really if I did an audit on my gut in the past, it was probably very unhealthy. And I'm really skinny too. I've always been skinny. So I didn't think I was eating bad foods or things that weren't healthy for me. And so I ate these things for years and years, and they attacked my gut. And the theory that I've come up with is that it was an autoimmune disease that just attacked my esophagus. And so my esophagus doesn't work. So anything I eat gets lodged. And so that's the genesis of it.
So the muscles that your body uses when you swallow to pull the food down your throat basically don't move. Is that right?
The nerves are dead, and the nerves control the muscles, and they'll never work the rest of my life. I mean, it's a permanent, no cure disease. For 5 years, I just listened to doctors, did no research, and struggled and had horrible pains, and went through all of these surgeries. And the last surgery I had was 2 years ago, and this is the one I was talking about a little while ago. And when I went into my checkup with the Mayo Clinic, they basically said, "Hey, listen, we're going to remove your esophagus, down the road, and there's nothing you can do." And they literally said, "Your disease is what it is." And it was in that moment that I just said, "All right. No, that I don't accept that." And I didn't know what that meant. I spent the next 6 months getting my health in order. And so now I'm off all of my medications, the ones they told me I had to take the rest of my life that would give me dementia. And so I literally changed everything about my diet to make sure that I was healthier and I didn't have to take the medications. And then I'm at the Abundance 360 conference with Diamandis, and he gets on stage, and the first thing he says is, pull out your notebook and write down something that people say is impossible that you want to make possible. Actually take your moonshot and put a goal on it and to get it done in 5 years. And, I'm at this conference thinking I'm there to help grow my business and to be innovative and all this thing. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm doing the exact opposite of my health. And so my moonshot was I'd find a cure in 5 years. And that sent me on this incredible, crazy, road for the last year and a half. And what the result is, this fall, pending approval by the Johns Hopkins and the FDA, I will start a one-man clinical trial, first time ever. It's never been done before, where they will extract stem cells out of my calf, culture them, and then insert them into my esophagus to try to regenerate the nerves and the muscles. And it really all started when people said something was impossible, and I said, well, I'm going to figure this out. In fact, the people that said it was impossible were the doctors at the Mayo Clinic, right? So I just decided I was not going to be disrupted, that I needed to be the disruptor. I have no idea if this will work. And if it doesn't work, I'll move to plan B. Actually, I'm talking to Peter had introduced me to another doctor who's 3D printing appendages now. And so that's sort of my plan B down the road if this thing doesn't work.
Nice. One of the big transition points I know about you and your progress has been Dr. Gundry. What kind of impact has he had on your health?
So this is another Peter Diamandis introduction. He introduced us. Gundry is the one that changed my diet. And now I am, I cannot tell you, everything in my life is so much better. I love food, Mike. I love good wine. In fact, I threw away the diet the last 3 weeks because I was in Europe with my family, and I ate when I wanted to and drank what I wanted to. And it was an awful, miserable experience. And so, but I also say, I'm not going to, if I'm going to go to Europe, I'm going to put things off for a few weeks and have fun. But it was pretty negative on my health. I could tell a huge difference, and I was back on my medications temporarily, but now I'm off. Anyway, but Gundry has been incredible. I mean, when I read his book, it's called The Plant Paradox. It just spoke to me. It spoke to everything I've gone through. And, my problem is this. I was paralyzed by the fear of this disease, and I did nothing about it for 5 years. I mean, I can sit here and talk to you about moonshots and clinical trials and innovation and all that stuff. But the fact is that I literally, for 5 years, just did nothing and mired in my, existence and my disease. And there are people like Peter, like Dr. Gundry, who have helped bring me out of that. And I'm really, really grateful for it. And so, but I understand sort of that paralysis of fear that a lot of people go through because I just went through it for so long.
So, professionally, you've made a huge career out of marketing, specifically in the political arena. So if somebody was going to pursue office or run for office, you were the guy they called for market research, building out marketing campaigns. And you've been on, dozens and dozens of newsreels, but you're kind of the go-to marketing expert in that world. How has this health challenge impacted that? I know you're still incredibly active. You've got a brand new book that's coming out on a marketing forefront, but how have you managed both of these things at the same time?
I not only I credit everything to the fact that I'm attention deficit disorder. And I was always told my whole life what a detriment that would be to my life. And what I really realized is that I can juggle about 30 things in the air at once. And I can, it doesn't stress me out that much. So this is, just one part of it. There's also this part of trying to be a better dad and husband, which I, for a long time, was terrible at, and then also trying to run the business. But really, the book came out of this. I've run political campaigns over 20 years. I've worked on 8 presidential campaigns, 3 winning ones. I've worked on winning U.S. Senate races, governor's races, congressional races, and I kept seeing that. People and businesses were utilizing marketing in a different way, and I didn't understand it. And then one day, a buddy of mine who is a major real estate developer in Hawaii came to me and he said, "I'm fascinated by what you guys do in politics, and I'm wondering if it could help my business and help us grow." And I said, "Well, what happened?" He goes, "Well, we've spent all this money on marketing, and we've gotten like one lead, and we've spent $50,000 on our marketing plan." And I went, "Well, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, there was a recommendation that we should, he's building big land developments and home developments in Hawaii and great areas." And he's like, "Well, it was recommended that we run these digital campaigns, and we also run Wall Street Journal ads on, the weekend vacation edition." And I went, "Well, why would you run classified ads in the Wall Street Journal vacation edition when probably 3/4 of that market is on the East Coast? It has nothing to do with Hawaii. Like, that makes no sense." And in politics, we look at the voter and we do all the research to figure out what the voters believe, and then we try to find alignment with our candidates, right? And so, and it's an interesting stat. Tony Robbins uses this statistic all the time, that it takes like 16 contacts, touches, views in today's advertising world to get a customer to convert. And in politics, there are studies out there that we've found that it takes 7 contacts or touches to convert an undecided voter to a candidate. And so I was like, man, that doesn't make sense, because it's ultimately much harder to get someone to support or vote for an unknown or unsavory political candidate than it is to get someone to buy a tube of toothpaste. And so I just got fascinated by this idea. So we came in and helped this guy, and I think we ended up doing like $10,000 worth of marketing, and we got him 750 leads. And he was like, "Well, how did this happen?" And we just applied political principles to his business. And then I'm like, this is interesting. I ended up interviewing over 100 CEOs for the book, and all of them came to me with the exact same frustration that I had found in my buddy, which was that they had hired some digital marketing agency and promised a lot of things. And then there was no or very little ROI. And we just do things completely different in the way we look at political campaigns. So when I reversed engineered that and I sort of used the secrets of politics into business, we started having all this crazy success for our business clients. And so then I decided I had to write that book. And so that's sort of where it came from.
Well, the title is Fire Them Now, The 7 Lies Digital Marketers Sell. And there are very few agencies that know what they're doing and that will produce a positive ROI for you. Most of them are very small. I'll use Jason and his agency, who's run all of our Facebook ads for the last 3 years now. We might be one of 5 or 6 or 7 clients that his team manage, but that's what's required because they've got to be in the account every single day, paying attention to it, tweaking the ads, setting up new, audiences and things like that. And it's just run on a micro level, where if you go to these big agencies and you're just one of 500 clients, it's probably not going to work out well.
Yeah, I definitely see that and agree. I will also tell you there's this other outlier that we see in politics all the time, but business marketing or marketers don't. Everybody is got their phone in front of their face right now, right? We know how important mobile is. And so everybody goes, well, you got to go mobile. You got to go digital. You got to run these marketing strategies. Well, in politics, everything is about personal relationships. Mike, you've built your business because people bought into you because you gave them personal connection. And it's not, they may have seen ads, but they came in and they understood you and they listened to you. And by the way, this podcast is a personal connection. You may not realize it, but people have built relationships with you that you don't know because of the podcast, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what we get that in politics, like our politicians are knocking on doors, right? They're making phone calls to voters. They're holding press conferences. They're walking in parades. They have to build relationships with those voters. And then we use the marketing to reinforce the message and convert. And so we always look at it from what the tip of the spear is not a digital marketing strategy. And by the way, I own a digital marketing agency. The tip of the spear is to build personal relationships with your customers or your voters, and then use your marketing to reinforce that message. And so I just think people fundamentally don't understand that. And so we tried to lay out all the frustrations that businesses had in the book, and then tell them how they need to go back to these agencies and demand a better standard. And really, we talk about how we did it in politics. Look, I'll tell you this. In 2016, my agency, we worked on 120 startups. 92 of them became number one in their market. 92 in 1 year, 92 startups became number one in their market. But they're not the kind of startups you're thinking about. They're politicians. And we understand that, we have election day and we have to build personal connections. And so election day forces us to have speed. It forces us not to be brought down into bureaucracy. We have to move fast. We have to make decisions and we have to build relationships. And so that's fundamentally how we look at it.
I've got so many personal questions just from a curiosity standpoint in politics, because that's such a topic that's in our faces on a daily basis today.
Really? I'm not familiar.
It's unbelievable to watch what's happened to this country and to the media and in the political arena since this last election. And one of the questions I have from a political marketing perspective, and you see when, let's just say, a specific campaign between 2 candidates goes dirty, right? You tend to see, the bad stuff comes out of the closet about candidate A or B or whatever it may be. How do you respond to that? What do you do when stuff like that happens and you're representing the other candidate, right? Maybe who's being talked poorly about or whatever. Do you say, hey, we stick to the high road or we hit back? But what's the philosophy behind that?
Yeah, this is such a good question, because I think even if for people that are entrepreneurs and business owners, take what I'm about to talk about and think about it, use it as a metaphor for your own business and your own business life. If you sit there and take the high road, you're dead. I mean, that's just it, 100%. And I tell business owners the same thing. If you get hit with a negative Yelp review or something, and you said, well, we're not going to address that. Well, you're dead. I mean, that's just that's the economy. That's the way politics works. Look, I would tell you this. First of all, in any political race, if I'm working directly with the candidate, we already know we've spent a lot of money to know the vulnerabilities of the candidate, and we already know how they're going to come at us, and we already have the ads cut that are going to respond to that, and we're going to have them up within 4 to 5 days. And that's just the way we look at it. You absolutely have to respond. In fact, not only do you have to respond, you have to punch back. And that's really how we look at it more than anything else. I will tell you this: if you don't, and typically I call it like the 5 stages of reacting to a negative ad, because if you get hit with a negative ad, and I tell business owners a lot of times, let's go let's go take these principles of negative ad strategy, which of course everybody hates, but we do it because it works, right, Mike? And so, I always tell business owners, if you applied these principles, not the same tactics, but these principles to your business and went after your competition, you could have explosive growth. And in the book, I lay out all these different strategies. But typically, if we get hit with a negative ad, there's sort of these 5 stages that everybody goes through. It's, first, let's just say I make a negative ad and I go attack a politician, our opponent. That other campaign, that other politician, all those people that are working on that campaign, the first thing they laugh at the ad, kind of like sheepishly, like, what is that? And then they freeze and they're like, oh my God, should we take this seriously? And then all of a sudden there's this chaos, like we got to have a meeting, we got to figure out something, we need to write some memos. And then they go to like some acceptance stage where it's like, oh my gosh, this thing is taking hold. It's working against us. We've got to do something now. And then there's finally they take action, right? And in politics, that can take 4 to 12 days. And in business, if business owners find creative ways to use a comparative ad strategy, not in an offensive way, but in a creative, funny way or a different way, and I talk about how they can do this. It typically takes opponents on the business side, it typically takes them 6 to 12 months. If you have 6 to 12 months to run some kind of comparative advertising campaign and no one responds, you will crush the market. You'll crush it. And, the great example of this, the best example is Steve Jobs in the Mac versus PC ads. I don't know if you remember those from about 10 years ago. Absolutely. He created this as an ad strategy. He created 360 plus ads. He only ran about 68 of them. And in those ads, if everybody remembers, it's like the nerdy older PC guy versus the young hip Mac guy. And in every one of those ads, the PC guy stumbles all over himself. He paints the narrative, not the Mac guy. And so there are just so many variables in that ad campaign. And basically that was an attack on Microsoft. More than anything else, it was PCs, but it was really an attack on Microsoft. And Microsoft literally took like 12 months to respond. And in the meantime, the iPhone came out at the same time. And to this day, Apple still owns the younger market because of it. Right now, there is an incredible case study to be written about Wendy's and what they're doing to McDonald's right now. And if you look, Wendy's is, and not only to McDonald's, but they're running the most fun comparative advertising strategy on social media that I've ever seen. And I think they've grown their Twitter following.
I was going to say, whoever's running Wendy's Twitter's just killing it.
Yeah. Why don't businesses do this? They're so scared because they think they think of the political environment. They think, oh my gosh, if we put out something funny, then it's going to be like Roseanne Barr. We're going to get fired, right? And like I keep telling business owners, you're not Roseanne Barr. You're not going to say something racist. Just go be funny and take chances. Another company that is crushing it right now is T-Mobile, and their CEO, I think it's John Legere, and he is crushing Verizon and AT&T on social media, and he's paying for it. These are ads. It's a strategy, and it's not offensive. It's funny, and they are dominating that market space for it. They're going after that. And I always say, if you're the underdog in a marketplace, if you're a business owner out there and you're not number one in the marketplace, this is the strategy that will give you unbelievable growth. And I lay out in the book how it happens and how it works, and how businesses can do it, and we do it with our own clients. But that's my point, is like the negative ad strategy, as much as people hate it in politics, we do it because it works. And as far as responding to it, like you said, you have to respond to it or you're dead. I mean, you're dead. If I ran a negative ad in politics for a candidate and my opponent didn't respond and then went out and did a press conference and said, I'm going to remain positive in this campaign, I'm not going to get to the level of my opponents, I smile because that guy is dead. we will win 100% of the time.
So I have to ask you too, and then I'm going to switch it back to the business side here, but I would just love your insight on how politics has changed in a really fundamental way since this past election, and the fact that I've seen any form of mutual respect completely disappear, and I've also seen an unwillingness of the other side to accept the result. And I could say the same thing about what's taking place in Brexit, right? So both here and in the United Kingdom, we've had a big vote. The little man, let's just say, beat out the lifelong political class in both of those elections. And in both of them, the elite political class is doing everything within their power to not honor that result, right? And I've never seen that happen before. After every other election, there's always been like, okay, we lost, we'll do better next time, and we'll respect the result. But now that's not happening anymore. Do you see the same thing?
Yeah, I do. I would tell you this is not a political problem, but a global issue, and it's not. It is affecting every part of our society. It is affecting the ability to have relationships with with people, with friends, with people that have differing opinions. It's happening in our economy right now. We're in the most disruptive moment in human history, whether it be in politics or whether it be with 3D printing or self-driving cars or, everything is being disrupted. You're seeing it in the political marketplace. You're seeing it in the economy, in the business marketplace. I think we are in a transition time. Our friend Peter Diamandis has a great slide that he gives in his speeches, and he shows a picture of a New York City street in 1900, and it's all horse and buggy. And he has another picture of the same street in New York in 1913, and it's all cars, right? And I truly believe that we are in that same transition right now, both in our economy and in politics. And yeah, the problem is that everybody has a voice and everybody's outraged about everything. And then they move on within 3 seconds to be outraged about something else. And, I tell my mom all the time, like, stop watching the news. Like, it's not helpful for anyone. And by the way, I'm a hypocrite because I've done over 200 media appearances in the last 5 years on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and Fox Business and ESPN. And I'm always sitting here talking about the same things that I rail against. But the fact is that it's not a positive environment. Everybody is utilizing it to make profit in the media side. And people are being sucked into it, into the negativity. And then they want to have their opinions heard and they want to feel sick. You know this with Tony Robbins. They want to feel their significance. And part of their significance is to go negative on people in a social platform, in just a relationship way. Look, I lived in Washington, D.C. for 17 years, and I lived in a very gentrified neighborhood. But at the time that we moved into this neighborhood, it was 99% Democrat. I'm a Republican. It was probably 75% African American. And when this was back right when Obama was elected, and when people found out who I was, they would kick me out of restaurants. They would. My wife is a Democrat. I'm a Republican, and I don't know if that can exist in this day and age.
I was going to say, how does
but
that?
my wife was at the time was like, oh my gosh, like, people don't even know who you are, and they're so hateful to you. And this is 10 years ago, right?
Wow.
So it's almost like I saw the seeds of this a long time ago, and for me, it's not going to change. I interviewed in my book, I interviewed Donna Brazil, who is a friend of mine. And she was the chairwoman of the Democrat National Committee when it was hacked by the Russians. And I interviewed her on how they handled that crisis for the book. Well, Donna and I don't agree on anything, but we agree that we like each other. And so we respect our opinions. And unfortunately, that doesn't exist in a lot of society anymore. It's really sad.
Yeah, no, that's what concerns me most. And I'm always thinking and trying to figure out what the source of that is. And if you were to have me place my bet, it's on the media. And there's whoever's in control of the primary forms of the media channels that are out there. It's very apparent that there's a coordinated agenda that they all have. And when you see the 10 major networks and newspapers all put out the exact same story, word for word, on a specific topic with a specific opinion, it's very easy to see that there is a coordinated agenda, right?
I'll give you a great example of that.
Sure.
And it happened in the last 24 hours, so I'm not sure when this will show up on your podcast. But yesterday, the EU basically fell on their sword, and Donald Trump won a trade war with the EU on tariffs and soybeans things. At the same time, a friend of mine, a CNN reporter named Caitlin Collins, she's a really good friend of mine, but she got kicked out of the White House for asking Trump a question when he was like walking, into his office or something. Every story on the news right now is about CNN's Caitlin Collins being kicked out of the White House. It has nothing to do with the fact that people have screamed with their heads on fire that Donald Trump is ruining everything in the world, especially on the trade front. And he just won this huge negotiation. Listen, I'm not 100% on Donald Trump, but I also know this, that the media will never, ever, ever, you know how this is. Entrepreneurs, we go out and we fail all the time, right? Part of the reason we're successful is that we fail so much. I fail all the damn time.
Elon's just getting
crushed right now,
yeah.
Right? And so, but in politics, if you make one little mistake, the media jumps all over you. It doesn't matter if it's more prevalent with Trump, but it is, they did the same thing with Bush. They did the same thing with Obama. They jump all over. How dare he made a mistake? Oh my God. And I'm thinking to myself, in the business world, this is just a normal day. We make mistakes. That's why we were most successful the next day. Sometimes it's one step back, two steps forward. You don't have the luxury of doing that with the media environment now. It's impossible. It doesn't matter if you're a senator or a congressman. It's the same thing. And the reason they do it is because if they whip people up in a frenzy, it sells ad space. And if it sells ad space, then people make a lot of money. And the people that they're hiring have a built-in bias. It's not that they're going to go out and say, I'm going to rail against Trump or Obama today. It's that they just naturally believe something, and they're going to confirm their beliefs. And these companies know that whipping people up in a frenzy makes money. And you combine those two things, and this is where we are in the media environment right now.
So that's the same conclusion I've come to. We all know marketing 101. You can either sell pleasure or pain. And we all know that our brains, the amygdala, the reptilian brain, is wired to respond and to see and be aware of pain like 10x more than pleasure. And so if you want to get somebody's attention, you put a negative headline up that, is painful. And the question that I've been asking myself is, what do you do? What do you do when the media, who's essentially kind of the subconscious or the conscious of the people, right, have control over that, and they're incentivized to always focus on the negative and division and to stir up the pot? Because a nation can't function that way for very long in a healthy manner, right? So is there a different business model, or I don't know what the solution is, but there has to be something, a different business model that's not based on attention, or there has to be a regulation put in place where it's turned into a nonprofit. I don't know what the answer is, because then you get into freedom of speech problems. But it seems like these companies are more than happy to sacrifice the health of a nation and everybody's well-being to make some money.
Well, we're going to find out, because the TV networks right now, they're driving a lot of this, will be dead in 10 years. Yeah. And so they're on their last straw, and they know this, that they've had a dying model for a long time, and Trump has brought their model back to life. And at a certain point, it won't. My advice, and the advice that I follow, is I just don't watch the news, and I'm much happier. Yeah. And frankly, I turn off my phone and I engage. To be honest with you, I was a pretty poor husband and father just a few years ago. And I went to Date with Destiny, and I went with my wife, and it was one of those life-changing moments, this, Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny. And what I realized was that
relationship day.
Relationship day was a sucky day for me. It was also the same day that my wife stood up on her chair and yelled freedom.
Oh, nice.
And because it realized that it was all on me and I was the problem. But the problem was that, I talked about how great it is to have ADD, but the problem is that when you have, for me personally, this isn't everybody, but when you have attention deficit disorder, it's hard to give people presents. It's hard to listen. I was a really crappy boss, and all of those things factored into a very unhappy person that wasn't going very far. And so once I went to the conference and realized that I was the problem and I had to change, just like I had to change with my health and my disease. And that really changed everything for me. And so for me, to go back to the point, is like I put down my phone at night and I spend time just listening and talking to my daughter and my wife. And not perfect, not even close, but it's a lot better. And I have a much healthier relationship. And I do this with my friends now. And, like I just put the damn phone down and I find that that's a bigger solution to anything that I'm frustrated with on the media side.
Yeah, agreed. Well, we've got about 20 minutes left. I want to make sure that we transition back to the business side. And I wanted to see if you would be willing to share some of the most critical strategies that you guys take your clients through that will help so many of the entrepreneurs that are listening to this today.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it earlier. I will tell you the one thing that I keep talking about is sort of this authenticity model, really. Everybody is scared as a business owner to be authentic. And I think with authenticity, that's what builds relationships. You've built your brand, Mike, because people buy into the fact that you're authentic and you're vulnerable. And we just have too many business owners right now that are scared to death of it. And so what we do is we build strategies on the marketing front to try to understand how to build authenticity and personal relationships with customers and clients, and then utilize marketing behind that. And I can't tell you how many times we've had businesses come to us and say, we spent $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 and we have nothing to show for it. And the book is called Fire Them Now. I was in China last summer with Peter Diamandis, and a Fortune 500 CEO is with us, and he's telling me the same story everybody else is. And I just looked at him, and in referring to the digital marketing agency he's frustrated with, and I just said, "Fire them now." And then I went, "Oh, that's the title of the book." And then I just sort of lay out how we run political campaigns on the marketing side and how those have affected businesses. And then really the main tool is I lay out the things that business owners should be saying to their marketing firm to get back control and win the game of marketing, and what they should demand from their marketing agencies. And I'll give you a great example. In 20 plus years of political marketing or business marketing, I've never had a contract that went longer than 1 month. Every contract I have ever signed is month to month. Every one. And one of the lies in the book that I write about is almost every business owner I've talked to had signed a marketing agency and had signed a 6-month, 12-month, 18-month contract that was unbreakable. So the marketing firm was going to get paid whether the business made money or not, whether the marketing plan worked or not. And I went, this is insane. Like in politics, the only way I'm successful is if my candidate wins. Think about that.
Yeah.
And he can fire me, or he or she could fire me at any minute. Like literally they could just fire me if they don't think I'm doing my job. How much do I innovate if that's my mindset? How much do I think about serving them before serving myself if I'm on a month-to-month contract? And I inherently, understand that. I'll give you a great example of this. So there was a special election back in the spring in Pennsylvania. It was for Congress. It was Rick Saccone versus Connor Lamb. I don't know if you remember this. It was a special congressional election. The Republican incumbent retired. And Connor Lamb is this Democrat. And he goes out and in a 5-month campaign, 228,378 votes are cast in this election. Connor Lamb beats Rick Saccone by 627 votes out of 228,370 votes. In 5 months, that's the campaign, right? How fast? So I tell business owners this. What if you took out Rick Saccone and Connor Lamb's name and replaced them with the name of your business and your number one competitor? And you had 5 months, and they're going to be 228,000 plus transactions. And the business that gets the most transactions out of that of the 220,000 becomes number one in their market, and the competitor is out of business and can't restart for 2 years. How fast would you go? How fast would you innovate? If you're the marketer, are you thinking about how can I get paid today? Or are you thinking about, we got 5 months, we got to go win. If we win, then we get to tout our success and we then become more successful, right? So that's what I always think about is like when I'm working with businesses or I'm working in politicians, it's like I have to win first for them before I get paid, before my payday, before I reap the rewards. We won an award for one of the best presidential ads in the 2016 race. And we made this ad and we made the ad buy and the candidate won that particular caucus. And we didn't really reap the rewards of that of a presidential ad buy until after that candidate had won, and then we submitted it and won an award for it. Like, we won after they won, and that's my whole point. And that's what I'm trying to teach business owners: is this is a very disruptive marketing environment right now, and you need to put yourself in a position to win before the marketing agency.
So, what do you guys do as an agency for your clients?
It's a really good question. And I would tell you this: we've had businesses hire us that come in and say, "Hey, just put an SEO, some SEO together, and or put some Facebook ads together." And we don't do that. What we do is we do run full service marketing campaigns. But what we end up doing is this: the first thing I do is first of all, we have contracts and they're month to month. But the first thing we do is we go, look, we're going to spend 6 weeks to 2 months, and we're going to study and put together a whole targeting plan for you. We're not going to spend money on anything until we understand your customers or your clients. And we spend 2 months doing extensive research. We put together a huge report and we give it to the clients and we say, if you like this, take it. It's yours. I mean, they paid for it, but we don't charge a lot for it. It's literally, we do it at cost. And I'm doing it because I'm trying to prove my worth to them. And then if they like that and they want to bring us on to help run a marketing campaign to grow their business, we'll do that. But we only do it if we're also then going to test this audience in many different ways at low cost levels. And so we would put a full service marketing program together. But if the business says, hey, thanks for this data, we're just going to take our own chances, that's good too. Like, whatever works for the business, that's what we're going to try to serve them.
When you say full service, I mean, I'm wondering, does that mean we're doing a paid Facebook campaign, we're doing Instagram, we're doing YouTube, we're doing AdWords?
We try to do it where we're the more creative side, and then we do the buying as well, right? So we've done a couple of Fortune 200 companies, and we'll work with them on social media campaigns. But really, we try to come in there and build creative that resonates around the target market, and then we go in and do the buying on that front.
Gotcha. Cool. So who would be an ideal candidate potentially for your services out of everybody who's listening to this today? Because if it sounds like you guys have clearly what you're doing in this arena, and at the same time I know you've probably got an ideal client. What are the criteria that you think would be best?
I will tell you this: I will not work for a tire kicker. I have 20 plus years in politics. We don't kick the tires. We go to work and we execute. And the companies we work with, they have to sign off on that, or I won't work with them. We want to take action. We don't want to do a lot of talking. And we want to make sure that the same thing I talk about in the way that you need to treat your customers, that's the way we want to treat our clients. We want to build a personal relationship with them, and we want to build something over the long term, so that the business wins and we're a part of that. And so for me, it could be a small business it could be, we have multiple Fortune 200 companies as clients. And my point is that I don't like tire kickers. I cannot stand people that can't take action. You have one shot to grow your business. You are in a disruptive economy. You need to get together. You need to be innovative, and you need to go. And that's that we had to learn that pain. We hired people people hired us that literally just were paralyzed by doing anything. And in a way, I kind of understand it because I've dealt with this on my health front. But in the end, I'm in it to grow people's bottom lines or win on political races. I'm not in it to try to make short-term money or work with people that don't want to grow. And really, it's all about growth, personal, health, professional. I just like the growth model.
Do they need to have a certain amount of annual revenue for that, or budget, for it to make sense to work with you guys?
Yeah, I don't know. I think every case is different. I mean, we again, we're trying to grow with companies, but we typically have gone to companies that are doing over $1 million in revenue or more. But I'm not opposed to any startups that don't have money. I'm actually, we've worked out different formulas and different ways with other businesses that didn't have a lot of money that were startups.
Cool.
We're open to it. Look, I'm more into alignment than I am into what a number is. I know that, and that is not a cliche. Like, if it's not fun, if I'm not if we don't have the ability to go work in alignment and be excited to work with those people and they're excited to work with us, if they're going to look at us suspiciously, even though we give them all the advantages, it's just not worth it to me. I just don't care. We're good. We're very successful. We have a very successful business. So I want to work with people that really want to go out and make a difference and grow.
Awesome. Man, this has been a phenomenal discussion that's gone all over, but at the same time, I feel like it's been educational in so many different categories here. You've got just such a crazy background within so many different arenas. And we talked about that a little bit, whether it's on the health side, the political side, the marketing side, the agency side. You've had a heck of a career, my friend.
Thank you. I know this is, the self-made man podcast, but I can truly say there's nothing self-made about me that I have in the Tim Ferriss model. I have a tribe of mentors, whether it be a Keith Cunningham or a Tony Robbins or Peter Diamandis or my wife or friends of mine that I go have coffee with and bounce ideas. I am lucky to have people in my life that give me input and give me and hold me accountable. And that's the only reason I've grown, because I have people that hold me accountable.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Phillip. This has been awesome. Obviously, people can go to Amazon and pick up a copy of Fire Them Now. I can't wait to get mine in the mail. Where else can people go to connect with you and to potentially learn more about your agency services or contact you about that as well?
Yeah, it's called winbigmedia.com is the company. phillipstutts.com is more of if I'm for speaking and interview requests, things like that. The other thing is, Mike, I do want to offer your audience sort of a free opportunity. If anything I've said has resonated, at my company, we've decided to create an offer to give more to those businesses. And basically, we've created a free digital marketing audit. And any business owner that's frustrated or anything can go to phillipstutts.com/audit. And they fill out a 3-minute form, and it's all their publicly available digital footprint. And my team will go evaluate it. And within 5 business days, they'll put a report together, and they'll do a free consultation call and send the report out. And basically what we've done is we identify 2 or 3 things that the business is doing really well that they should do more of, and maybe 1 or 2 things that they can improve on. And we kind of lay out what we think the improvement of the return on investment would be if they did those things. And there's no obligation to hire us or anything like that. But it's a free marketing audit. And if anybody's interested, they can go there and find it.
Awesome. I'm signing up today.
Nice.
So you'll have me in there.
Very
cool. Well, Phillip, thank you so much for the time today. This has been awesome. I'm going to go through the audit process with you. I can't wait to hear y'all's feedback. I think that's going to be awesome. And the fact that you're doing that for free is amazing. So thank you so much for that. And I really appreciate the time today. This was great.
Hey, if you want to do the consultation call on your podcast, that'd be great. No, I'm just kidding.
That might be super interesting. Yeah.
Actually, Tucker Max gave me that one. He gave me that one.
Well, Tucker's one of my best friends. So yeah.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. Very cool. Who knows? We'll see.
Hey, Mike, thank you for having me on. I'm really grateful. You do great work, and your podcast has been impactful for my life as well. And I'm super grateful for you for it. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Well, guys, thank you so much. Make sure you go pick up a copy of the book and take advantage of Phillip's offer today. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening, as always.